Rum-pa-bum-pum-pum, rum-pa-bum-pum-pum, rum-pa-bum-pum-pum. Incredible.
Where's the orchestra?
Talk about the airplane.
From Jewish actors playing Nazi officers to personal ties with the horrors of World War II, Hogan's Heroes may have ended decades ago. But recently, strange secrets and bizarre facts about the show have come to light, leaving fans scratching their heads. How could a lighthearted sitcom hide such shocking revelations for so long? From newly uncovered behind-the-scenes stories to ironic truths about the actors and their roles, these discoveries could completely change how you see this beloved series. Some of these facts are so strange they've left fans questioning everything they thought they knew about Hogan's Heroes. One of the most thought-provoking aspects of Hogan's Heroes lies in its casting choices. Many of the actors who portrayed Nazi officials, often in ridiculous, bumbling ways, were Jewish and had direct connections to the horrors of Nazi Germany. Werner Klemperer, who played the hapless Colonel Klink, is a prime example. He and his family fled Nazi Germany in 1935 to escape the rising dangers of anti-Semitism, emigrating to the United States. Klemperer's personal history added a layer of irony and poignancy to a show that intentionally mocked one of history's most oppressive regimes. Klemperer accepted the role of Klink only under one non-negotiable condition: the Nazis would always be portrayed as fools. He made it clear that Klink should be an idiot who never succeeds, ensuring that the show wouldn't risk humanizing or glorifying the Nazi regime, even in a comedic setting. This condition shaped how the series approached its humor, making Klink a clownish symbol of incompetence, forever mocked and outsmarted by the clever prisoners of Stalag 13. The irony wasn't lost on Klemperer himself. While he saw the comedic value of the role, he understood the weight of creating humor rooted in a time of historic atrocities. In interviews later in his career, Klemperer reflected on the power of comedy to ridicule those in power. If you can make people laugh at them, you've defeated them, he noted in one discussion about his role on the show. By turning Klink into a figure of ridicule, Klemperer and the show's creators stripped any remaining power or authority from a leader representing a regime that had caused so much real-world suffering. Klemperer's portrayal of Colonel Klink may have been comedic, but it was also deliberate. It offered an indirect yet impactful form of resistance, transforming what could have been a painful subject into a space for laughter and biting satire. If nothing else, Klemperer's performance demonstrated that even the darkest chapters of history could be challenged and undermined by humor. The setting of Hogan's Heroes, Stalag 13, was entirely fictional, but its name was inspired by real German POW camps known as Stalags, short for Stammlager. In stark contrast to the comedic portrayal on the show, these camps were often grim places where prisoners faced harsh conditions, malnutrition, and forced labor. What made Hogan's Heroes bold and, for some, controversial was how it used this harsh historical backdrop as the foundation for a sitcom. The show transformed the idea of a POW camp into a place where prisoners, instead of suffering, thrived and consistently outwitted their German captors. This clever rewriting of history allowed audiences to laugh at the absurdity of war while rooting for the underdogs. By presenting the fictional Stalag 13 as a safe haven for underground resistance efforts, the writers were able to balance wartime themes with humor. The prisoners were in control, manipulating their captors at every turn. This dynamic wasn't just comedy, it was a deliberate inversion of a painful reality, a way to laugh at an enemy that had terrified the world. As producer Albert S. Ruddy later noted in interviews, the show wasn't about the war itself, but about the stupidity of the oppressors, an approach that turned the show into a unique mix of satire and escapism for its viewers. One detail that fans of Hogan's Heroes may notice is Colonel Klink's ever-present cigar, which, humorously, is almost never lit. This seemingly small and simple touch carried more weight than one might expect, becoming a subtle symbol of Klink's character and his role within the show. Some have interpreted the perpetually unlit cigar as a metaphor for Klink's lack of real power. While he clearly desires to appear authoritative and distinguished, the unlit cigar mirrors his ineffectiveness and inability to control the prisoners or his own fate. It's a prop that signifies an illusion of power rather than the real thing, much like Klink himself, who is repeatedly outsmarted by Hogan and his crew. From a comedic standpoint, the unlit cigar worked as a playful touch that subtly undermined Klink without needing a spoken joke. It became part of his persona, always trying to look important, but never able to fully embody the authority he so desperately wanted to project. This visual gag fit perfectly within the larger tone of the series, where the German officers were constantly portrayed as incompetent and easily manipulated. Werner Klemperer reportedly embraced the comedic subtlety of these choices, understanding that even a small detail like an unlit cigar could help reinforce the absurdity of his character and the Nazi hierarchy he represented. By including such nuances, the show was able to create depth within its humor, ensuring that Colonel Klink remained a figure of ridicule, comedic, pathetic, and ultimately powerless. Sergeant Schultz, played by John Banner, became an audience favorite on Hogan's Heroes thanks to his clumsy demeanor, his knack for comic timing, and most notably, his famous catchphrase,
I see nothing.
What many fans might not realize is that the phrase wasn't part of the original script. It was improvised by Banner during filming. The line perfectly captured Schultz's approach to survival. Positioned between the prisoners and his superiors, Schultz constantly looked the other way to avoid confrontation. Whether he witnessed sabotage, a hidden tunnel, or Hogan's latest scheme, his go-to response was to loudly declare that he saw nothing, heard nothing, and therefore knew nothing, making him a harmless and often unwilling ally to the prisoners' operations. Banner's ad-lib was so successful that the writers began incorporating the line into future scripts, recognizing that the phrase summed up Schultz's character in a way that no original dialogue ever could. His comedic plea for ignorance not only suited the character's cowardice, but also became one of the most quoted and iconic elements of the show. Even after the series ended, his famous line lived on as a cultural touchstone. It showcased how Banner's comedic instincts and ability to bring depth to a seemingly simple character helped elevate both his role and the overall humor of the series. His improvised words weren't just funny, they cemented Schultz's place as one of the standout figures of Hogan's Heroes. Among the cast of Hogan's Heroes, perhaps no one had a deeper personal connection to World War II than Robert Clary, who portrayed Corporal Louis Lebeau, the French cook and prisoner. Clary wasn't just playing a fictional character in a wartime setting. He was a real-life Holocaust survivor. Born Robert Witterman, Clary was deported to the Buchenwald concentration camp at age 16, where he survived unimaginable hardships. Despite losing many members of his family in the Holocaust, Clary endured through his passion for singing, which he performed for his captors and fellow prisoners. A small act of resistance that kept his spirit alive. On his forearm, he carried a number tattooed by the Nazis, a permanent reminder of the atrocities he survived. His decision to star in Hogan's Heroes, a comedy set in a POW camp, may seem unexpected given his history, but for Clary, laughter was a means of healing. He once explained in interviews that it was essential to separate the show's fictional setting from the grim realities he experienced. Hogan's Heroes was about a POW camp, not about a concentration camp, and I knew the difference. Clary's presence on the show brought an almost unspoken depth to the series, with his character offering humor and warmth in sharp contrast to the real-life pain he carried from his past. This juxtaposition between Clary's tragic personal history and his lighthearted performance highlights the resilience of the human spirit. In the fictional world of Hogan's Heroes, Lebeau used his wit and skills to outsmart his enemies. A reflection, perhaps, of Clary's own strength and determination to survive and thrive despite the darkness he had faced. A closer look at Hogan's Heroes reveals multiple anachronisms scattered throughout the series. For a show supposedly set during World War II, viewers might notice things like post-war equipment, modern references, and even uniforms or props that don't quite match the historical period. But rather than being accidental oversights, many of these mistakes were deliberate choices by the show's creators. The reasoning was simple. Comedy took precedence over historical accuracy. The goal of Hogan's Heroes was never to offer a detailed or realistic portrayal of the war. It was to entertain. For example, post-1940s vehicles, weapons, or gestures would occasionally appear, not because the team lacked knowledge, but because strict historical adherence wasn't essential to telling a good joke or moving a scene forward. This blend of time periods allowed the show to remain lighthearted and accessible while distancing itself from the real horrors of World War II. By taking these creative liberties, it ensured that the audience could enjoy the absurdity of the prisoners' schemes and the foolishness of their captors without feeling weighed down by history. Whether or not viewers appreciate these changes depends on their perspective. Some might see the anachronisms as a distraction, while others recognize them as part of the show's satirical style. Ultimately, these deliberate mistakes served one purpose: to prioritize humor over precision and keep the focus on the show's playful tone. Both Crane's drumming and Dawson's musical background were subtle additions to the show, but they offered a glimpse into the real-life skills of the actors. These moments, while never the focus, added depth to their characters and reminded viewers of the multi-talented performers bringing Hogan's Heroes to life. While Hogan's Heroes was primarily focused on comedy, several members of the cast had unique talents that occasionally found their way into the show. Bob Crane, who played Colonel Hogan, was an exceptionally skilled drummer, a talent he developed long before his acting career. Crane would often entertain the cast and crew with impromptu drumming sessions on set, and his musical ability even made its way into the series. In a few episodes, Hogan is seen drumming or tapping out rhythms, a quiet nod to Crane's passion outside of acting. Richard Dawson, who played Corporal Peter Newkirk, brought another hidden skill to the show: his background as a singer. Before becoming a household name on television, Dawson had a brief but successful singing career in the UK, even performing under the stage name Dickie Dawson. Although his singing wasn't a major focus on Hogan's Heroes, it occasionally slipped into scenes where his character would humorously hum or sing, adding a layer of authenticity to his performance.